Deadpool and Joker 2 may be the number one and number two grossing movies of Hollywood this year. I know Hollywood's just going to shift and they're going to go, man, I wonder what R-rated comic book property is available that has some meaning.
Today, Comic Book is exclusively announcing that McFarlane Toys and Marvel are teaming up to collaborate on an all-new line of posed Marvel figures that will bring Todd McFarlane's iconic Marvel artwork to life. And we got a chance to ask Todd about reteaming with Marvel. What made you want to partner with Marvel after all these years?
As a toy maker, every show I went to, I saw that everybody else had 3 licenses that I was like, man, how come I can't get my hands on them, right? Star Wars, Marvel, DC, right? For years, for decades, I felt like I was the orphan at the toy fair. And I always said, I can sell this stuff. I need somebody to give me a license, but I'm not going to be able to compete against the big giants that, give, big contracts to these companies. I get it. So, conversations continue. And then in 2020, we sort of get the contract for DC Multiverse. And so there's like one X I've checked off, right? But that's still left to me too, Marvel and Star Wars. And although, again, I've been having conversations sort of kiddingly off and on with Marvel. And I sort of mentioned it to them, like, I know you got to figure out how to create a sliver, but I'll tell you how to create a sliver. This is easy. How about if you do nothing? The sliver is nothing but McFarlane toys or McFarlane artwork, and that the McFarlane artwork is signed by McFarlane. And I can guarantee you nobody will repeat that because I'm McFarlane, right? So I can actually make this, we can make this little niche corner. And I kept saying it sort of as a joke. And to some extent, when we did the Avatar toys, that's under the big giant umbrella of Disney, right? You get in the family. And so the conversations and the jokes about, me doing my own artwork started to become a little more palatable, I think, once they sort of saw that they could trust me with what I had done with, some of their early Disney product and then with Avatar. So they was like, hey, Todd, maybe we should have that conversation again. We just, again, have to figure out a carve out is what they called it. And it ended up being even sort of better than I thought, because now it's not just, I'm just not limited to my artwork, as long as it's comic book related and it's not articulated, right? Because again, they've got the big license with Hasbro, and I understand that. I sort of could go into the vault all the way back to the beginning of FF #1. So it was like, wow, that's cool. So now I can do like cool covers, cool artists, cool characters, cool images, like any and all the above, and take a poke at it and basically turn into, 3D, what most of us had normally only had sort of seen as a 2D image. And in some cases, some of it would be my own work. And again, why not? Why not let the guy who drew something actually be the guy who does the 3D version of it? Because I've been in the 3D world making toys for 30 years. So it's not like, it wasn't a long shot, although I can do that character too, to let me basically take a stab at this. So here we are. And so all of a sudden, McFarlane and Marvel, right, on the toy front, finally, right? So we get to dabble in it. So it'll be interesting to see what the reaction is at retail and from the fans.
So how did you go about choosing which pages you've drawn that you thought would make a memorable statue? And maybe what's a page that you haven't done yet that you'd love to see get a statue in the future?
And this may all come across as sort of egotistical, Chris, so take that for what it's worth. that as part of it, I just go look at if part of the sell here is sort of McFarlane doing McFarlane, right?
Mhm.
That's sort of a bit of the hook. Then I go, we have to include some of my artwork every single time. And probably we should probably include a Spider-Man every single time. Now, when I talk to my group about Spider-Man, I go, guys, stop just looking at covers, right? There are a lot of interior pages that have some really cool, funky poses. And the question is, over time, can I basically pick 10, 12, 15 different poses over time that are completely different from each other,
Yeah.
right? One's crunched, one's upside down, one's flying, one the legs are kicking up, one sideways, whatever. I mean, I've got, if I go through my own books, there's plenty to pick from that will be different than the last one you picked. And then some just because they're cool to look at, some because they might be fun to look at, right? Like in the back of my head, I remember, and I might do this one. I did one where Spider-Man was waiting for something to happen, so he's just hanging upside down. He's got a donut on every finger, and he's trying to figure out which donut he wants, right? That would be kind of fun sitting on the shelf too to look at instead
Yeah.
of just constant sort of action hero stuff. And then beyond that, then again, I did a little bit obviously of the Incredible Hulk, and then I did a bunch of sort of ads and stuff of different characters. I did some of the Marvel Tales covers. So there's plenty if I need to do like a McFarlane every single time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But the bigger piece that to me will be sort of more personally fun to me is now being able to sort of be a geek and go, oh, what would be the cool stuff, right? And
Yeah.
and again, I'm going to have to get acquainted also to what's the equivalent of some of the stuff that's happened in the last 5 years that were the same as I felt when I was 17 or 22 or 27, right? I can't keep going back to when I was a kid because it might alienate some people going, yeah, 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 I get it, right? But this is our equivalent of your issue number one or your Spider-Man 300 or whatever. So I want to make sure that I pick a nice balance of those as we go through time, but also be able to just pick some cool artists that I thought did either memorable runs and or characters and or a cover here or there that are just still, I think, seared in the comic book lexicon.
As a geek for your Marvel artwork, I would say that I'm really excited about the idea of seeing a Venom statue, and I would also love to see a Juggernaut versus Spider-Man from your last issue of Spider-Man. You have some great artwork in there that I would just love.
Yeah.
Now,
No, I was thinking of Juggernaut the other day. I go, man, he'd like be big. He'd be big, dude. Because we're doing a Hulk, and all of a sudden he got really big on us, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
they're like, Todd, I don't think he's going to fit in the 6-inch box. And go, well, he shouldn't. He's the Hulk. Got to put him in the big box, right? So, because we're doing two different sizes.
yeah, yeah.
One of the other things too that we're going to experiment with is scale. Um, because the first wave we tried to be consistent with the scale, but depending on your body pose, your body language, if you're in a crouch, it can seem small,
Mhm.
right? And so on the cover, those are great poses, but they make them bigger, right? They just fill the space on the cover. They don't worry whether it matches the drawing of another character that somebody else drew in another book. So we're experimenting with that and just sort of keep getting the feedback from the consumer to see whether they kind of would all fit together or whether like no, just make them cool on their own. That's what we're buying. We're buying cool.
Now, on the subject of other Marvel artists you'd love to see in the future in this line, who'd be first on your list?
I sort of got a soft spot for some of the guys I grew up with. I'm gonna do a tip of the hat in the first series to Jim Lee and Rob Liefeld because I thought that during that whole era where we came along, We sort of each made our mark in different ways that were there. So those are some of those guys. I mean, eventually, I'd like to tip my hat to some of the people that inspired me a ton, George Perez and John Byrne. But I also know that there's a whole generation that have come in who those aren't the guys they grew up with, right? It's more of people that they're looking at right now. And whether it's the interior artist and or the cover artist, I'll be sort of looking at what they're asking for and giving them that. So we'll see. You know, like do I do one that is like a Peach Momoa cover or something like that? Like, yeah, sure, why not? Right?
Yeah.
It'd be cool. It'd be cool. So I think we need a. I think we need a. I need to span all of it, right? All the way from literally from Stan and Jack in the beginning of the Fantastic Four all the way to today with a nice balance, and then just sit back and just see is this line that I'm doing a more of a retro play? Is it more of a classic, or is it just people just want to see McFarlane finally doing some Marvel figures? I'm hoping it's a little bit of all the above, so I can play with, you know, some of the newer characters that have come out, sort of, you know, post 2000.
Now, is this Marvel partnership any chance at all that this is going to lead to the long-awaited, elusive Spidey Spawn crossover?
Ha! I don't know if it will have. Look, I have conversations with Marvel on a semi-regular basis, and that's the only topic of conversation we have. And it usually is a 20-second conversation. It's like, Todd, just phoning. Are you any closer to thinking about it? And it's like, no, not really. But it's a massive undertaking for me because I think that it has to be Spidey, Spawn, and I have to do all the artwork, right? It's just like anything less than that is not doing it proper. So I just have to be able to see myself clear to be able to devote the time needed and not feel like I'm just sort of a little bit here, and I'm rushing it because it'll show on paper. I need to be able to basically just channel all the things that people like in my artwork when I was doing it on a regular basis and put it back on the paper and get people go, oh man, he's back, right? Like, oh man, he's back, and his voice sounds just as good, right? Just like a revival tour for a band. So I don't know. So will it ever happen? Don't know, Chris. Don't know. But my guess is that it's probably more likely to happen once I sort of wind down some of the distractions in my life and I actually do have time and I go, oh man, I can just go back to drawing and don't have to worry about 100 other things I have to do.
It's going to be a huge full circle moment when that happens. I can't wait. I mean, it feels like 30 years in the making, but now
Maybe 40 or 50 by the time we get there, but we'll get there. So
now it wouldn't be a proper interview between us if I didn't ask you what's the latest movement on the Spawn film. You know that I'm the biggest champion for that.
So not a lot different probably from the last time we talked. I've read, so we have a script, right? There's a script, but the writers are like, they're not quite sort of satisfied with their own work, which is what all of us creative people are. We put it on paper and then we criticize ourselves. So they're going through sort of an extensive sort of rework and rewrite of it. And so I was just on the phone a couple of days ago with Scott Silver, the guy who's sort of manning the lead of it right now. He's also the writer of Joker 1 and Joker 2. So we're all planning and hoping and moving towards having this done so that we can take it out, so that we can find our studio finally pre Joker launch, Joker 2 launch, which comes in October, I believe, around New York Comic Con, right? So, but we have to have that script that everybody is signed off on, and is like, this is it. This is the movie we want to make. And we're, it's interesting because I have these great conversations with Scott Silver, and he is so, like, I wish everybody could hear the conversation because he is so impassionate about what he's talking about. And he is so engrossed in what he's doing. When I'm at his place in person, which I've been a handful of times, he, like, when he talks, he closes his eyes and he's just so engaged, right? So it's not like he's just like, I'm just trying to get it done. He's so wrought up to wanting to do something meaningful, that it's just not a good guy versus bad guy story, right? He's just like, I can't, Todd, I can't, and that's it. So he's just like, I need to do this, and we got to do this, and if we will work this, then we can do this, and it's like, but I just want the ending to be like unsettling and strong and have some meaning and some purpose, not just that the good guy won, right? That's sort of like, it's too easy. And so he said the other day, and he said a lot of things, I should write them down because he's got some pretty good quotes, that it's like, I'd rather take a swing and it be too big of a swing than to not take a hard enough swing at it, right? And so again, he's going, maybe we took too big of a swing on Joker 2 because we got the music in it. Who knows? We'll find out. Right. But he's that mindset that it's like he's kind of fearless, and he doesn't want to replicate what he knows is sort of the safe, probably predictable, probably path that most people would go because it's the proven path, right? Just wants to bend it. He goes, we're going to do R-rated and we're going to do it. And it can't be mini Marvel and mini DC. It can't, right? So he's just adamant on this. So hopefully we'll have that all done and get there. I know that he said the other day, but sometimes he just says stuff where I just go, well, maybe we'll just wait and we'll go in after Joker 2, and it's a big opening for Joker 2. And he's like, no, we'll do it before then. So, okay, well, that tells me we can only do it if we've got a script. So in his mind, we're all going for that. So that sort of sets the stage. My guess is somewhere between sort of San Diego, Comic-Con, and New York, that space in between there, that if we're near the end of that script, that's our sell window. And if that's true, then we would, that headline would come out somewhere in between there. So that's where it's at. I've read the first half of it, the rewrite, and it's, if you're looking for something different that you go, no, not what I thought, then this is the script. So we'll I don't know. We'll see. What I do know, Chris, and I keep saying, and I don't think I'm going to be too far off, is that Deadpool and Joker 2 may be the number 1 and number 2 grossing movies of Hollywood this year. Cinema, just cinema. And if that's true, then Hollywood, replicates. And so everybody will go, oh my God, we got to do, it's not comic book movies people are getting a little sort of complacent with. We need R-rated. This is the commonality between Deadpool and Joker 2. What's the commonality? Comic books, R-rated. So they're going to go, man, we got to get comic books that are R-rated. I know Hollywood's just going to shift, and they're going to go, Marvel, dig up all your R-rated stuff, right? Get ready for Punisher, right? Here he comes. And DC's going to do the same thing. They're going to pull out all the things that could possibly go into R-rated. And then Hollywood as a whole is going to be doing the exact same thing, because they're going to see the data. And then they're going to go, man, I wonder what R-rated comic book property is available that has some meaning.
Well, I mean, I would say that just by the fact that Disney's letting Deadpool be R-rated, it's already leaning that way, right? They're already starting to go that way. So yeah,
well, again, Chris,
right.
the first couple were R-rated already.
Right.
It's just that they also had, I mean, and again, not an insignificant number. They tapped out at 850 million for an R-rated movie,
right?
Which for a while was the record, right, in cinema history for R-rated. It's just that was getting lost against the backdrop of these $2 billion, $1.5 billion Avenger movies, right? So it was like, oh man, Aquaman's making $1 billion. Oh, okay. But we live in a new world now, post-pandemic, post-strike, right? A lot of things have shifted in the buying habits and the frequency that people are going to theaters, and they're trying to figure out how to get people back into theaters in a meaningful way. Well, if they see that the data says number one and number two were R-rated movies that sometimes Hollywood is sort of abhorrent to, because they know that it doesn't make as much. It's like do PG-13 and then do kid stuff. If they see that those are number one and number two, then they're going to pivot. They're going to pivot because they want to make money. And then they're going to pivot, hopefully, to, I think it's almost a given, they're going to pivot to R-rated comic book stuff and try and mine it. At a time when I think the biggest available R-rated thing by far that they can buy that has any meaning is going to be Spawn. It's been staring them in the face, right? They're going to, if they do their work and they look at it and they pay attention and they vet it, they're going to see that there's like Spawn, and then it's a precipitous drop if you want comic book sort of superhero R-rated stuff. He's built for it. He's been built for it, and he's staring you in the face at the time you're looking for it. He's available. Oh, by the way, not only is he available, but you can also go to where people make money. One of the people that is going to make money is a guy named Scott Silver, who may, fingers crossed, be the only guy potentially who's written $2 billion movies. Two. The only other guy would be James Cameron, but he did it with PG-13 movies with Avatar, right? So there's only one movie that's R-rated that's ever crossed $1 billion. That's Joker 1. And if he does it a second time and he stands alone, I don't know, maybe Deadpool might get there, but if it doesn't, then, and he stands alone with 2, if not, it should get close, hopefully, then everybody in Hollywood also who needs money is going to be looking for moneymakers. And he's going to be one of a handful of people in recent history that's a moneymaker. He's $1 billion baby. And oh, by the way, get the $1 billion baby and ask him what he wants to do. And when you knock on his door, he's going to hold up the Spawn script. And it's R-rated comic book stuff. You're also looking for that. Those two things are going to converge. So we, either unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know, I guess it depends on how you look at it, Chris, we have waited so long and had so many interruptions with the pandemic and the finding the right people and the strikes that we might just be in a catbird seat. When those collide, when we go, we got Spawn, you're going to want it, the number one R-rated project you can get for comic book, and the only guy who's ever written R-rated $1 billion movies. They're both in the same spot. It'll work. It'll work. So the question is, who wants it, and what's the deal going to be? So we'll get it done, Chris. We're going to get it done right now. I feel more confident now at any point in the process, given all the dynamics that are there right now. So
I'm excited, man. I can't wait for it. But that's great. That's great news. I love that, and I think you're spot on. But you've always had a good head for this stuff. So.
Wow, no. Hollywood likes to replicate. That's not like anybody can see that, right? Rom-coms work. They make 10 rom-coms, right? So kid movies work. They make 10 kid movies. R-rated superhero movies work. They'll make 10. They'll make 10. Spawn is just going to be one of them. Again, we'll have to perform and we'll have to work. But here we go. Let's do it.